scandals, controversies, a toxic relationship with a Divas champion, and a career that went from world championships to throwing chairs at fans in a Tijuana gymnasium. This is the story of the man who had absolutely everything and somehow found a way to lose it all. This guy was Alberto Del Rio, who had fancy cars, a personal ring announcer, world championships, and Vince McMahon himself pushing him to the very top. He won the Royal Rumble. He cashed in money in the bank. He was handed everything a wrestler could ever dream of. So, how does a guy like that end up wrestling in front of 47 people in a high school gym in Tijuana while someone throws a beer at him? That's exactly what we're going to find out today. When Del Rio showed up in WWE in 2010, the timing was perfect for him. Eddie Guerrero had passed away years earlier, and Vince had been desperately searching for the next big Latino superstar ever since. Del Rio walked through that door like he was born for the role. He came out to the ring in expensive cars, had Ricardo Rodriguez announcing his name like he was royalty, and within months he was already feuding with Rey Mysterio and sniffing around world title matches. By 2011, he won the Royal Rumble and cashed in money in the bank to become a champion. Everything was going exactly according to plan. The machine was fully behind him, and the future looked incredibly bright. But before the cars, the championships, and the chaos, the cracks were already showing behind the curtain. Here's something you don't hear very often in wrestling. A guy gets fired and the fans actually feel sorry for him. But that's exactly what happened with Del Rio in August 2014. So, what did he actually do that got him fired from the biggest wrestling company in the world? He punched a guy backstage. But before you judge him, here's the full story. A social media employee allegedly made some pretty inappropriate and disrespectful comments directly toward Del Rio. Now, most people in that situation would maybe complain to HR, shoot an angry email, or go home and vent about it. Del Rio walked up to the guy and hit him. Was it the smartest decision? Absolutely not. Was it understandable given what was said to him? A lot of people thought so. The company released him immediately, no second chances, no warnings, just gone. The internet wrestling community was actually pretty divided on this one. Many fans felt Del Rio had every right to be angry, given what was reportedly said to him. Others felt that no matter what someone says to you, you simply cannot go around punching people at your workplace. Both sides had fair points, honestly. Either way, Del Rio was out of a job and his first run was officially over. He went from main eventing pay-per-views to sitting at home wondering what comes next. But then turns out getting fired from WWE doesn't always mean staying fired, especially when Vince is involved. Vince McMahon has never been great at holding grudges, and Del Rio was about to find that out. Just over a year after getting fired, Del Rio was back in WWE in October 2015, and not just quietly slipped back in either. He returned at Hell in a Cell, beat John Cena clean, and won the United States Championship in his very first match back. Vince was clearly still a believer. So why did this second run fall completely flat? Because Del Rio simply did not care anymore. You could see it in his matches, you could see it in his interviews, you could see it on his face every single time he walked through that curtain. He looked like a man who was physically present, but mentally already somewhere else entirely. Things got worse when they stuck him in a faction called the League of Nations alongside Sheamus, Rusev, and Wade Barrett. The group existed for one reason only: to make Roman Reigns look strong by losing to him repeatedly. Then, at WrestleMania 32, Austin, HBK, and Mick Foley came out and beat up the entire stable in front of 100,000 people. Whatever dignity remained was gone after that night. By August 2016, Del Rio had seen enough and walked away from WWE for good using a clause in his contract. And the moment he walked out those doors, his personal life was waiting to completely fall apart. Del Rio started dating Paige, the former Divas champion, and from the very beginning, something felt off about the whole situation. Paige was in her early 20s. Del Rio was pushing 40, and he was still legally married going through a divorce at the exact same time. People raised eyebrows, but nobody could have predicted just how messy this was about to get. Within weeks, they had matching tattoos. Then, just weeks after that, Paige got down on one knee at an independent show in Puerto Rico and proposed to Del Rio in the middle of the ring. The man was still legally married to someone else. So what did his family think about all of this? Paige's own father came out publicly and said he was completely against the marriage. That Is your future father-in-law telling the world he wants nothing to do with you? 3 days after the proposal, Paige had major neck surgery, and instead of things calming down, they somehow got worse. In April 2017, Del Rio went live on social media completely drunk, ranting about Triple H and WWE and burning every remaining bridge he had left with the company. Then came the airport incident in Orlando where witnesses saw Del Rio and Paige in a violent argument in public. They broke up and got back together multiple times before finally ending things for good in November 2017. Paige has since spoken openly about the relationship, describing years of physical and mental mistreatment, substance issues, and toxic behavior throughout their entire time together. She has moved on and found happiness. Del Rio, on the other hand, was just getting started with his problems. In May 2020, right in the middle of a global pandemic when the whole world was already dealing with enough, Del Rio was arrested in San Antonio on charges that made everyone stop and pay attention. He was accused of aggravated kidnapping and harming a former partner. These were not minor charges. We are talking about accusations that carried the possibility of decades behind bars if he was found guilty. So, what exactly happened? The details that came out were deeply disturbing. The alleged victim claimed Del Rio had restrained her and committed terrible acts completely against her will. Del Rio was released on a $50,000 bond, and the case dragged on for well over a year. Court date after court date kept getting pushed back and delayed, while the accusations continued hanging over his head like a dark cloud. Then, in December 2021, the charges were suddenly dismissed. The alleged victim did not appear in court, and without her testimony, prosecutors simply had no case to move forward with. Del Rio walked out without a conviction, and immediately his supporters online started acting like he had been proven completely innocent. He was not proven innocent. The case was dropped because the victim did not show up. Those are two very different things, and the distinction matters enormously. The damage to his reputation was already permanent by that point anyway. Wrestling promotions around the world had seen enough, and the bookings started drying up faster than you could blink. From facing decades in prison to chasing bookings wherever he could find them, Del Rio was about to discover just how small the wrestling world could get. Most major promotions wanted absolutely nothing to do with him at this point, so he ended up working for AAA in Mexico, which is still a legitimate major promotion with a real fan base and actual television deals. And surprisingly, they did something nobody expected. They gave Del Rio their top championship. In August 2024, he won the AAA Mega Championship, which is basically the equivalent of winning the WWE Championship in Mexico. One of the most prestigious titles in all of Latin American wrestling sitting around his waist. So, did Del Rio finally take this opportunity seriously and turn things around? He threw chairs at people in the crowd, literally. In March 2025, during an AAA event in Tijuana, some fans allegedly threw coins and beer at Del Rio after his match ended. Now, every wrestler deals with disrespectful fans at some point in their career. You ignore it, you let security handle it, you walk to the back and laugh about it later. That is the professional thing to do. Del Rio climbed into the crowd and started hurling chairs at the spectators. A woman in the crowd was hit and injured during the whole thing. The Tijuana Wrestling Commission handed him a 180-day suspension immediately, and the video spread across the entire internet within hours. They tried their best to stick with him through everything, but by June 2025, he lost the championship, and by July they were writing him out of the promotion entirely. Even the company that believed in him the longest had finally seen enough. And with AAA gone, the last real door in professional wrestling was about to slam shut right in his face. WWE made it crystal clear they want nothing to do with him. When they acquired AAA in 2025, rumors started flying online that Del Rio might somehow sneak back into WWE through the back door as part of the deal. WWE shut that down so fast it was almost funny. They released a public statement saying they had absolutely zero plans to sign Alberto Del Rio. Not a maybe, not a we will see, just a flat-out no thank you goodbye. So where does that leave him today? AEW has shown zero interest. Impact Wrestling stopped calling ages ago. New Japan will not touch him. He is essentially blacklisted from every promotion that matters anywhere on the planet. The guy who once drove fancy cars to the ring and had his own personal ring announcer is now performing in front of 100 people in high school gyms, hoping someone throws him a booking. And here is the truly wild part about this whole story. Nobody did this to Alberto Del Rio. No conspiracy, no politics, no Vince having it out for him. He punched a backstage employee, had a chaotic relationship, faced serious criminal charges, went on drunken social media rants, and threw chairs at paying customers. Every single door that closed on him, he closed himself. Alberto Del Rio had the fanciest cars, the brightest spotlight, and the biggest opportunities in professional wrestling handed to him on a silver platter. He looked at that silver platter, thought about it carefully, and then threw it into a crowd in Tijuana and hit a woman with it.